Throughout American history, only 3,536 Medals of Honor have been awarded to 3,517 recipients, with 19 double recipients, one being Mary E. Walker, a recipient and the only woman recipient, for her actions during the Civil War, and Douglas A. Monroe, the only Coast Guard recipient for World War II. Union soldier William Johnston was the youngest recipient at age 13 during the Civil War, with Smedley D. Butler and Daniel J. Daly being the only two Marine Corps double recipients. Who was Daniel Daly? What made him unique and different from many other Marines and Medal of Honor recipients? What did he do to earn such distinctions?
Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, military veteran, historian, author, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History.
Daniel J. Daly was born November 11, 1873 in Brooklyn, New York to Irish immigrant parents, John and Ellen Daly, with his siblings, Sister Mary and a brother named David. Early in his life, the family moved to Glen Cove on Long Island. Daly was a natural fighter from an early age, and he was prone to being bullied due to being a small-built boy. But he took to street fighting naturally in the tough neighborhood and became quite good at it. As an adult, he stood 5 feet 6 inches tall and only weighed 132 pounds. Daly was not very interested in education, preferring a life of adventure, and he worked as a struggling newspaper boy in Manhattan before he decided to enlist in the Marine Corps on January 10, 1899, at the old age of 26, hoping to get into the Spanish-American War. But that conflict ended before he even completed boot camp. But after graduation, he became a shipboard Marine assigned to the Asiatic Fleet in May 1900, where he deployed aboard the USS Newark for Taku Bay, China, where he landed with other Marines en route for Peking. By late 1899, the Fist of Righteous Harmony, called Boxers by the Western press, rebelled against Western influence in the country and were openly attacking Chinese Christians and Western missionaries. By May 1900, the Boxers were roaming around the countryside near Peking, housing the foreign embassies, killing at will. The international legation included the United States, Italy, Austria-Hungary, Germany, France, Great Britain, Japan, and Russia, numbering almost 20,000 soldiers around the country, but only 400 men, including about 50 Americans, were inside the walled compound. When it was learned that Westerners were being murdered, things changed drastically. When the report came that thousands of Boxers were approaching, it became terminal. The multinational relief force was ordered to relieve Peking and save the small detachment, including the civilians. The first week of June 1900 saw the first international relief force, called the Seymour Expedition, of 2,100 men, including 100 Americans, being sent from the northern port of Tianjin to support the defenders in Peking. But on June 13th, the Empress Dowager ordered her imperial forces, including the Boxers, to prevent the relief troops from arriving, and the column was turned back as they faced several thousand Chinese. A desperate call went out. The first American troops had left the Philippines on June 14th, the next day, 1900, as a small detachment of the 1st Marine Infantry Regiment sailed for Taku. The U.S. Army's 9th Infantry Regiment, commanded by Colonel Emerson Liscombe, left Manila on June 27th, arrived at Taku, and then marched on to Tientsin. By July 13th, the international force was assembled and attacked at Tientsin by the Chinese and the Boxers. The U.S. 9th Infantry was heavily engaged, suffering about 15% casualties, including Colonel Liscombe being killed. Their pitched battle and killing large numbers of Chinese had opened the route to relieve Peking. The following day, sensing victory, on June 14th, the Empress ordered that all foreigners were to be killed. The German ambassador was murdered, and the other foreign ministers and their families and staff, together with hundreds of Chinese Christians, were trapped in their quarters and in the Roman Catholic Cathedral in Peking. Meanwhile, the 400 men on location in the legation had prepared their defense to prevent the Boxers from overrunning the entire compound. U.S. Marines and German forces had been stationed on the Tartar Wall surrounding the city of Peking, south of the American legation, but intense enemy fire had driven them back and down for safety. In August, the American forces were designated as the China Relief Expedition and included the Army 14th Infantry Regiment, a battery of the 5th Artillery Regiment, and the 6th Cavalry Regiment, commanded by Army Major General Adna Chaffee, with more than 2,500 U.S. soldiers, sailors, and Marines. This was the 8-nation alliance force, made up of about 18,000 soldiers in total, including 2,500 Americans, 4,300 Russian infantry, with Cossacks and artillery, 8,000 Japanese infantry, 3,000 British with Indian infantry, cavalry, and artillery, 800 French Foreign Legionnaires and German cavalry, and infantry joined Austro-Hungarian and Italian soldiers. The defenders in Peking knew that the relief force was on its way, but could they hold on? Marine Captain Newt Hall and Private Dan Daly mounted one part of the wall that had a long field of fire on August 4th with their Lee Navy rifle model 1895. The killing began almost immediately. Daly, an excellent marksman, had selected his killing ground, and it would be the longest single-handed standoff in American history. The Boxers had a few artillery pieces set up less than 1,000 yards away to fire almost level and point blank. Daly kept picking off the artillerymen one by one as they were replaced with new targets. The Chinese finally abandoned their artillery, easy pickings for Daly. Due to the growing numbers of hostile forces that had gathered in numbering in the thousands, Captain Hall left Daly alone to bring up reinforcements on August 14th, and Daly remained alone to defend his section of the wall, considered the most vulnerable location single-handed. Despite Chinese snipers firing at him and attacking the wall with ladders, he fought them off, shooting dozens until his ammunition ran out, so he resorted to using the bayonet and the butt-stroke method to knock the Chinese off the top of the wall as they climbed up. He was sporadically handed ammunition by runners, and he continued to kill more, then going back to the bayonet until more ammunition arrived. It is unclear exactly how many he killed and wounded, but there were hundreds of dead Boxers and just as many wounded laying on the ground and against the wall, covering 1,000 yards deep and 500 yards wide. But after 2 weeks of defending this sector of wall, the last almost 2 alone, that section fell quiet as the Chinese survivors decided to find a less heavily defended section to breach. The relief force reached the outskirts of Peking on August 12, 1900. On August 14th, troops of the U.S. 14th Infantry arrived. Later that evening, Captain Hall managed to rally the International Force survivors and link up with the release force that had arrived. He needed to check on Daly. The 14th Infantry scaled the Tartar Wall section, littered with hundreds of dead Boxers, where Daly had defended and raised Old Glory on the battlements, where Hall and the Army soldiers found an exhausted Dan Daly. It was the first time a foreign flag had ever flown on Chinese soil. Shortly afterward, British troops managed to break through to the trapped foreign legation compound, but there was still fighting. The next day, the U.S. 5th Artillery blasted open the gates to the inner city, and Allied troops poured in to occupy Peking's city center. After surveying the terrain and the massive numbers of casualties caused by Daly, he was recommended for the award of his first Medal of Honor, which he received in December 1901. Daly was soon promoted to corporal and became a non-commissioned officer. Daly was known to be a strict disciplinarian, highly intelligent, and able to size up a dangerous situation faster than others. He was fair-minded and very popular among both the officers and enlisted men, famous for his unhesitating heroism, but Daly was also well known for his constant attention to the needs and concerns of his men. Soon afterward, Daly was offered a direct commission, which happened many times later. but he declined on the grounds that he would rather be, quote, an outstanding sergeant than just another officer. In March 1911, Daly was serving aboard the USS Springfield when he put out a nearly disastrous gasoline fire before the general alarm could be sounded, which prevented the powder magazines from exploding, destroying the ship. Daly received commendations from his commanding officer, the ship's captain, and the Secretary of the Navy. A dangerous revolt in Haiti in 1915 endangered the Americans living there and property, and seeing a Marine Expeditionary Force sent in, Daly was serving with the 15th Mounted Company, 2nd Marine Regiment, and they carried out long-range patrols into the interior to seek out the Caco bandits. Daly learned that Marines had been taken prisoner, and, locating the prison camp, he tunneled under the walls, led a few Marines, silently killed the guards, and rescued the Marines. But his heroism was not yet over. On October 24th, 1915, Gunnery Sergeant Daly and his detachment were crossing a river after dark in a deep ravine near the Caco-held Fort de Piti, when they were suddenly fired upon from three sides by about 400 Caco bandits concealed in the bushes about 100 yards from the fort. Although surprised by the ambush, Daly led his Marines to higher ground and holding a good position throughout the night while receiving constant enemy fire, they observed. Just before dawn, Daly and two other Marines, First Lieutenant Edward A. Osterman and Captain William P. Upshur, led three squads forward in different directions to outflank and surprise the Cacos. The maneuver worked, and they killed many of the rebels while the rest fled, allowing them to capture Fort de Piti. As a result, Daly, Osterman, and Upshur all earned the Medal of Honor for their actions that day, and it was Daly's second. Daly served during World War I from November 4, 1917 to April 21, 1919, and fought in the Toulon sector from March to May 1918 and in the Aisne operations during June 1918, which included Chateau Thierry and Belleau Wood. On June 5th, Daly extinguished a fire in the ammunition dump at Lucy-le-Bocage. 2 days later, one of the heaviest German bombardments, he personally visited all of the company machine gun crews scattered over a wide section of the front, keeping up morale. On June 10th, his machine gun company was on patrol and taking enemy machine gun fire at Belleau Wood as the Germans retreating from Chateau Thierry stood their ground. When his Marines of the 73rd Machine Gun Company received fire crossing the open wheat field, Company First Sergeant Daly realized they were outnumbered, outgunned, and pinned down. Daly then famously ordered an attack and leapt forward shouting his now famous order, "Come on, you sons of bitches, do you want to live forever?" Daly pushed his surviving men through the enemy fire and located the source of the machine gun and single-handedly attacked an enemy emplacement, capturing the Spandau and killing the three-man crew despite being wounded by the use of hand grenades and his Colt 1911 pistol. Daly's Marines then exploited the gap and pushed deep, encountering the main element of the German 347th Division, and for 2 days the fighting was close quarters with grenades, bayonets, knives, even hand-to-hand. The fighting was taking place in several positions, but especially on Hill 142. Daly's bravery allowed the Marines of the 5th and 6th Marine Regiments attached to the Army's 2nd Infantry Division, ironically commanded by Marine Major General John A. Lejeune, to clear the woods and win the battle for Allied forces. At Belleau Wood, the Marines suffered the highest casualty rate in U.S. Marine Corps history until the Battle of Tarawa in 1943, but they won. His actions during that battle earned him the Army Distinguished Service Cross and the Navy Cross. The French awarded him the Médaille Militaire and Croix de Guerre with Palm and the French Victory Medal with 4 clasps. Later that day, during an enemy attack on the village of Bourreche, Daly ran through intense enemy fire to collect about a dozen wounded Marines and soldiers, bringing them to safety. He even gathered a few of the dead. Both 5th and 6th Marines would earn the French Fourragère, which all Marines still wear when assigned to those units. The cost was heavy: 31 officers and 1,056 men of the Marine Brigade were casualties. In total, United States forces suffered 9,777 casualties, including 1,811 killed. There is no complete accounting for German soldiers killed, although 1,600 were taken prisoner. One German soldier wrote, "The Americans are savages. They kill everything that moves." Another German called the Marines reckless. The legend is that the Germans used the term Teufelhunde, devil dogs, for the Marines, although that seems unlikely as that term was not commonly used in the German language at that time. However, it was reported that the word Höhlenhunde, which means hellhound, was used. Either way, it was a sign of utmost respect. World War I German veteran and Pour le Mérite recipient Captain Ernst Junger used that term in mentioning the Marines. Daly again saved the lives of his men, cutting down a German charge on June 21st, where he was wounded. After recuperating, he served in the Saint-Mihiel offensive in September 1918 and the Champagne offensive at Bloquemont from September to October 1918, and was twice wounded in action again on October 8, 1918. He then served with the American Army of Occupation in Germany following the armistice, which he considered not a bad birthday present. When the war ended, Daly served with American occupation forces in Germany, but his service included sea duty aboard the ships USS Newark, USS Panther, USS Cleveland, USS Marietta, USS Mississippi, USS Ohio, and USS Machias. His career was quite colorful. In addition to combat in China, Haiti, and France, he also served in Panama, Cuba, Mexico, and Puerto Rico, and 8 locations in the United States. Daly remained on active duty until September 1919 when he transferred to the Fleet Marine Corps Reserve. He then took a job on Wall Street as a bank guard for 17 years. Daly officially retired from the Marine Corps on February 6, 1929 as a sergeant major. Daly often spoke about the heroism of others with whom he served, but he never spoke about himself in such terms. Marine Corps University's biography of Daly said that while he was a natural for publicity, he disdained it and disliked all the fuss made over him. A complete list of Sergeant Major Daniel Daly's decorations and medals includes 2 Medals of Honor, Navy Cross, Distinguished Service Cross, 3 Letters of Commendation, Good Conduct Medal with 2 Bronze Stars, China Relief Expedition Medal, Philippine Campaign Medal, Expeditionary Medal with 1 Bronze Star, Mexican Service Medal, Haitian Campaign Medal, World War I Victory Medal with ein Saint-Mihiel Meuse-Argonne and Defensive Sector clasps, Médaille Militaire, Croix de Guerre with Palm, and the Fourragère. Daly always thought that medals were a lot of foolishness. And Daly never drank alcohol, but he enjoyed smoking his pipe with cut-plug tobacco. Dan Daly never married, and in 1919 he was reported as saying, "I can't see how a single man could spend his time to better advantage than in the Marines." In 1932, Daly was hospitalized after having a heart attack. Sergeant Major Daniel Daly died in the early morning of April 28, 1937 of heart disease at his sister's home in the Glendale area of Queens on Long Island, New York. He was buried in Cypress Hills National Cemetery in Brooklyn. Sergeant Major Daniel Dan Joseph Daly was once acclaimed by Major General John A. Lejeune, former Commandant of the Marine Corps, as the outstanding Marine of all time. Major General Smedley Butler, the other 2-time Medal of Honor recipient and fellow combatant in Haiti, called him the finest fighting Marine I ever knew, and wrote that it was an object lesson to have served with him. Daly's record as a fighting man remains unequaled in the annals of Marine Corps history. Both of his Medals of Honor and other medals are in the National Museum of the U.S. Marine Corps in Quantico, Virginia. In March 1943, the U.S. Navy commissioned the USS Daly in his honor. The ship was christened by his niece. Dan Daly was the most decorated enlisted man in Marine Corps history, nicknamed the ultimate devil dog by his fellow Marines. His legend is secure.
Thanks for watching today's episode of Forgotten History. If you like this episode, please consider becoming a channel member or joining our Patreon page. This would help us offset the ever-increasing cost of production. As always, please like, share, and comment. And if you have any show ideas, please contact us, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Until next time.